Netflix made waves when they announced that they were working on a new Assassin's Creed television series with Ubisoft, and now fans are eager to see what assassin from the franchise's long history gets a spotlight in this new endeavor. Of course, they could always create an all-new assassin and story, but if they decide to adapt a previous character, I've got a few ideas on who would be a great fit for the live-action treatment. I'm Matt Aguilar, and here are the assassins that should get the spotlight in Netflix's new series. Anyone that knows me knows Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Odyssey was going to be on this list, and anyone who's played the game knows why. You can play as Alexios or Cassandra in the game's campaign, and Alexios was fine, but Cassandra was amazing, delivering the most compelling and charismatic lead since EZIO. She could easily lead a series, and the Spartan setting and foundation of Greek mythology is as rich as they come. You could also get quite a bit from the game's overarching story for a series, as Cassandra is hunting down the various members of Cosmos, who are using her brother as their weapon after a tragic event when they were children. The story has everything, and would make for a wonderful adaptation. There's a lot of love for Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and understandably so. That said, and I might ignite some pushback here, the DLC Freedom Cry is the best part of the whole game. That's because it puts Edward's quartermaster and eventual assassin ADEWALE in the spotlight. ADEWALE is a much richer and more compelling character than Edward, and while we get glimpses of his journey throughout the games, there's so much left to explore. ADEWALE is freed from slavery by pirates, who he ends up joining much to their surprise. After being captured, he meets Edward KENWAY, and they begin a long and winding adventure that eventually puts ADEWALE in touch with the assassins, beginning a whole new chapter of his life that connects in major ways to not only Black Flag, but also Rogue and Assassin's Creed 3. And his son, who eventually becomes an assassin, also leaves the door open for even more worth exploring. In short, ADEWALE is an easy choice and we'd love to see it. Now, this one is in on a technicality, but hear me out. Assassin's Creed 3 is not the best game in the series, but the first parts of the game introduce you to one of the most interesting villains in the series, and that's HAYTHAM KENWAY. If that last name sounds familiar, it should, as HAYTHAM is actually the son of Black Flag's Edward KENWAY, and while he is trained by his father to become an assassin early on, see, technicality, Edward's death and a betrayal in his inner circle changes that trajectory. HAYTHAM ends up becoming one of the most powerful members of the Templar Order, but his story is definitely worth a visit, and if you were going to explore a story from two sides, he would make the most sense on the Templar front. HAYTHAM is incredibly charming and makes some convincing arguments to Connor and Shay at various times, and because he has such strong ties to both Rogue and Assassin's Creed 3, you could bring in several characters across the series. SHAO Jun received the spotlight in Assassin's Creed Chronicles and even the animated Embers project, but if you want to bring a different flavor to the AC universe and tell a compelling tale in the process, she might just be the perfect way to do both at the same time. Despite the smaller canvas of Chronicles, it paints a rich picture of China's assassins versus Templar conflict, and SHAO quickly elevates herself above your everyday assassin throughout. Her battle against the Eight Tigers and the inner conflict between getting her vengeance against them and rebuilding the Brotherhood are both intriguing on their own, and once you throw in EZIO, who she seeks out later in his life and is mentored by at one point, you've got a story that would make for quite a series. Speaking of Chronicles, it also introduced fans to NIKOLAI, a Russian assassin who would also get a comic series to flesh out his story. NIKOLAI is actually one of the more intriguing options, mostly because there are quite a few larger ramifications to his time as an assassin and his bloodline. Some of NIKOLAI's battles and actions caused major events, and NIKOLAI's time with the assassins was not as smooth as others. He's one of the few who would abandon the order after a clashing of ideals, and that growing internal conflict makes him one of the more human and relatable assassins. Russia is also one of the least explored brotherhoods in the greater Assassin's Creed world, and while his story has a tragic ending on several fronts, including ties to the Great Purge in the modern day, it would make for one hell of a ride. If you're looking for a different feel from most of the other Assassin's Creed games for the series and one that will stick out immediately, you can't go wrong with Syndicate. The game takes place during the Industrial Revolution and revolves around two siblings, Jacob and EVIE FRYE. There's a lot to explore in their history and sibling dynamic, and there's an edge to them that isn't as prevalent in other Assassins, making them perfect for a Netflix adaptation. Their approach to saving the city is also a bit different than usual, as they operate more in the underworld and utilize all methods as they look to free the city from Templar control. Their gang, the Rooks, weaken Templar control in the area in a variety of ways and make deals with some delightful, if at times unsavory characters along the way. So if Netflix is looking to make an impression with their series, there's a lot to like about putting the FRYE twins front and center. Well, you knew the most popular assassin ever was going to be in this list, and it's easy to see why. No lead in the series has the mix of charm, style, and mystery that EZIO has, and while EZIO's story has received the most attention over the course of 3 games, there's still plenty left to explore. Honestly though, you could just flesh out what's already there and have a hit series on your hands, so it's a win-win either way. Whether you take on EZIO's beginnings after he sees half his family killed and subsequently discovers the assassin's heritage he unknowingly inherited from his father, or his prime assassin days as he starts the Italian Brotherhood, you've got a vast assortment of stories and characters to use in the series, and the time period means fans will get to see supporting characters like the beloved weapons and gear maker Leonardo da Vinci. You'd also have the story in Revelations and his interactions with SHAO to look forward to, making this perhaps the best way to kick off an Assassin's Creed Netflix series universe. Well, that's our thoughts on who should be the lead assassin in the Assassin's Creed Netflix series, but let us know your thoughts and get even more coverage on the new Netflix series right here on Comicbook.com.